Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm going to share with you how I made this card, and I'm going to share my #1 tip for heat embossing with water-based dye inks. It makes it so easy, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm starting out here with the Land of the Free background stamps, and I'm going to put a white A2 sized piece of cardstock inside my stamping platform. I already have my stamp here on the top plate and it's nice and centered. So what I'm going to do very first thing is I'm going to come in here with some clear embossing ink. Now, why am I doing this? Well, clear embossing ink stays sticky for longer. The formulation is meant to stay sticky and stay wet so that you can get your embossing powder to adhere to the paper. I'm going to make sure that I've got the clear embossing ink all over my stamp before I flip it over. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bring in some anti-static powder tool just to go over my paper really quickly so I can ensure that I'm not getting embossing powder later where I don't want it. So now I'll flip the plate and press it down and make sure to get a nice impression. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing a second time with this clear embossing ink. So that's going to allow me to get really good coverage. That's why stamping platforms are super helpful, is because I know that this is going to stamp right in the exact same place once I press it down. Now I can lift it back up. You probably can't see it very well on camera, but I can definitely see that I have got good coverage with that embossing ink and it looks really nice. So I'm going to come in here with some red water-based dye ink as well as some blue water-based dye ink. Now, generally these don't heat emboss very well because they dry quickly. But because we have put down that layer of clear embossing ink, it's going to keep those areas really nice and sticky for our embossing powder. So once I get a good amount of red ink down here, I'm going to go ahead and soften the edge. And I do that just with my blending brush, and I just lightly rub on the stamp along that edge in order to soften it so there's no harsh line when I stamp down here. So I'm going to press this down, lift it up, and you'll see that beautiful fade we have there from the darker red at the top to the lighter red at the bottom. I'm going to do this a second time because I want that red to be even more rich and saturated. So I'll bring my brush back in here, just go along the edge to make sure I don't get a harsh line, and then I'll flip and press this down again and then lift it up, and there we go. It looks really good so far. So I'm going to come in with my blue from the bottom, and the reason I'm not going from red to blue and I'm leaving a space in between is because red and blue would combine to make purple, and we don't want purple for an Independence Day card. We want red, white, and blue. So the center is naturally going to be white because of the white cardstock. Again, bringing in my blending brush just to soften that line, and then I can flip this over and press down, lift it up. I could leave it here, but I think I'm going to bring in a little bit more blue because if you've got that stamping platform, why not put it to good use, right? So blend out that line again and flip and press and lift, and look how good that is. Now remember, everything is still nice and sticky because that clear embossing ink lasts for so long. Now I am going to use a little tool here to help me get my paper up because I'm going to try and avoid sticking my fingers on the front of the card panel. I don't want to smear any of that embossing ink. And I'm going to bring in 2 different embossing powders. I'm going to first bring in some clear embossing powder, and I'm just going to lightly go over everything with the clear embossing powder. I'm not trying to get full coverage here. I'm just sprinkling it along, and then I'm going to tap it off. This will make sense in just a moment. Now I'm going to clean up my clear embossing powder here before I move on to my next step because I don't want to mix up my 2 embossing powders. Now I'm going to come in with some polished silver embossing powder, which is really, really beautiful. But I don't want this piece to be entirely silver. I'm going to use a light hand here and just sprinkle some here and there on the card panel. And what this is going to do is it is going to combine in the areas that are still kind of sticky with the clear embossing powder. And you're going to see, we'll still be able to see that beautiful red and blue, but we're going to have this gorgeous shine to it. It's going to be silvery when you turn it in the light. So, so pretty. Once my heat tool is nice and hot, I'll bring it in here and I'm going to carefully run it along the image until I can make sure that everything is completely melted. Now, this can be kind of hard to do when you are working with a large panel, so take your time and look at that gorgeous shine. The camera just doesn't even do it justice. When it's turned in the light, it actually looks entirely silver. Just gorgeous. Now I'm going to use the Lovely Layers Eagle here in order to create a layered eagle to go over our background. I have all of my pieces here ready to go with the colors of cardstock that I want to use, and I'm going to cut this out with my die cutting machine. Now you also could cut these out in white cardstock and color them with ink or with alcohol markers, whatever you would prefer. I've got some liquid glue here, and you can see Honeybee is great about their layering guides. I have it up in the left-hand corner there so you can see what's available on their site. So I'm going to take this second layer of the eagle, and this is going to line up perfectly with the top of the eagle's head as well as the bottom of the tail feathers. So I'll go ahead and pinch around those areas, bring in my third layer, which is a darker brown from my first brown, and that is going to line up right along the top with the eagle's head. So I'll line that up and press it down, keep everything nice and layered where it needs to go. Next, I'll add the eagle's head, and this is going to layer right over the top of the head right here. So I'm just going to lay that down and press, and I use some cream colored cardstock, and it matches the same cardstock that I used for the first layer for the tail feathers. Now for the beak, this is a really tiny piece, so I've just added some glue directly to the spot where the beak is going to go. And then I'm using my wax pickup tool to go ahead and pick it up and place it right over the top. That is much easier than trying to use my fumbly fingers to get it in the right spot. I've got the tops of the feet here. Now the dark brown is the talons, and so the tops of the feet are cut out in yellow, and it's going to make it so that dark brown cardstock shows underneath for the talons. And this goes right along that same curve of the foot, so I'll just line it right up with my tweezers there and press down. I'm going to repeat that process here. I've got my second foot, and now I'm just going to add some glue directly to the eagle right along that curve there on the dark brown cardstock. Now that is because the feet are going to match up perfectly right along the kind of curve of the foot you'll see here. So I'm going to press this first one down, and then I'll press my second one down, and it's going to line up beautifully and look completely natural. How cool is this eagle? Absolutely gorgeous. I am going to go ahead and die cut another one of the heads so I can get the little teeny tiny piece for the eye, and I did that in black cardstock. And I'm going to again use my wax pickup tool just to pick up that teeny tiny eye there, and then I can pop it right into place so it fits in there perfectly. For my sentiment, I'm going to heat emboss on some dark blue cardstock here. So I've got some anti-static powder down, and I'm going to bring in a sentiment here from the Because of the Brave stamp set. There are coordinating dies that I'll be using. These are really great. Thank you for your service. Super nice. America the Beautiful. Happy Independence Day. Celebrate our heroes. This would be great to give to a veteran, or it could just be used in celebration of Independence Day. I'm going to be doing that, so I'm going to use the Happy Independence Day stamp for the front of the card. I'll come in with my clear embossing ink and stamp that down. I'm just lightly pressing, and I'm going to do this twice so I can make sure that I get really good coverage on there. And now I'll go ahead and heat emboss it with some white embossing powder. Make sure to get good coverage, tap it off, and I'm going to do it a second time. I probably didn't need to do it a second time, but it's habit. Again, always make sure your heat tool is nice and heated up before you take it to the paper. That is going to give you a much nicer result. That looks good. So I'll cut this out with the coordinating die, and I did cut 2 extra with that coordinating die so that I could layer them up and add a little bit of dimension to the sentiment. And you're going to see later that I decide I want even more dimension, but for now I just did these 2 extra layers. Now I can go ahead and put together my card. I'm going to start with the heat embossed piece here that we created, and I did cut this down so that there is 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So it's cut to 5 by 3 3/4 inches, and I'm going to center it here on a piece of dark blue cardstock. It's the same cardstock that I used for the sentiment, so it's going to coordinate really well. I'll get it nice and centered on there, and this blue piece of cardstock is cut so that it has 1/8 of an inch border as well. So it is cut down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Now this is going to go over a regularly sized A2 card panel, so 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. That's white. So we're going to have a double kind of border on this. We'll have the dark blue border and then the white border. I think that looks really nice, draws your attention to the center, and helps keep everything looking really cohesive because of that dark blue that goes with the sentiment. I did add some foam squares to the back of my eagle. I'm going to place that down in the center, and you can see here now what I meant about the sentiment. I wanted it to be really popped up because I didn't want it to get lost with the background, because there's a lot of writing in this background stamp and it's very busy, very pretty, but very busy. So I'm going to bring my tweezers in here and get this down towards the bottom right third of the card. It's a great spot for sentiments. Press that down, and now I get to add some bling. You know I love the bling, so I'm bringing in the Americana gem stickers. There's also Old Glory pearl stickers that would work really well for this card. I can put my card on my card base now, so I've added some liquid adhesive here, and I'm just going to take it corner to corner and line those up in order to put it on my card base, and that finishes off the card. So pretty with all those fun details, and when you turn it in the light, you get that gorgeous silver shine. When it's straight on, red, silver, and blue. When it's at an angle, you see all silver. Love it. All right, guys, I hope that you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that you'll get notified about future videos here on the Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.